Karen illegally towed and crashed my Lamborghini, so I took the HOA to court and destroyed them. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the pristine lawns of Willow Creek Estates, a gated community where every blade of grass seemed to bow to the HOA's rulebook. I stood in my driveway, arms crossed, staring at the empty spot where my Lamborghini Huracan had been parked just hours ago. My pride and joy, a sleek, roaring beast in Verde Mantis green, was gone. Not stolen, not borrowed towed, and not just by anyone, but by Karen Whitlock, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, whose vendetta against me had just crossed a line I never thought she'd dare to breach. It all started 6 months ago when I moved into Willow Creek. I'm Ethan Caldwell, a 32-year-old tech entrepreneur who sold my startup for a 9-figure sum and decided to settle in this suburban paradiser, so I thought. The moment I rolled up in my Lamborghini, heads turned, and not all of them were admiring. Karen, with her perfectly coiffed blonde bob and a clipboard perpetually glued to her hand, was the first to approach. "Mr. Caldwell," she'd said, her smile as fake as her spray tan, "we have strict guidelines about vehicle aesthetics here. That car might not fit our community's vibe." I laughed it off, thinking she was joking. Big mistake. Karen wasn't joking. She was the kind of person who'd measure your mailbox height with a ruler and fine you for being an inch off. My Lamborghini, with its low growl and flashy paint, was her personal nightmare. She claimed it disrupted the neighborhood's harmony. I ignored her passive-aggressive notes, her pointed glares at block parties, and even the time she accidentally spilled red wine on my white shirt. But towing my car? That was war. I stormed to her house, a beige McMansion with a live, laugh, love sign on the door. Karen answered, her face a mask of smug satisfaction. "Ethan, darling, your vehicle was parked in violation of HOA Rule 47B. No ostentatious vehicles in driveways overnight." I blinked. "It's my driveway, Karen. And it was 6 p.m., not overnight." She waved a manicured hand. "The board voted to enforce early due to complaints. It's at the impound lot now. Pay the fine, and you can have it back." Her smirk told me she knew the fine was $2, $500, a drop in the bucket for me, but a power trip for her. I paid the fine, fuming, and drove to the impound lot, expecting to find my baby unscathed. Instead, I found a nightmare. My Lamborghini's front bumper was crumpled, the hood dented, and a spiderweb of cracks spread across the windshield. The lot manager, a greasy guy named Carl, shrugged. Tow truck driver said it was an accident. Happens sometimes. I demanded footage. Carl scratched his neck. Cameras were down. "Sorry, man." My blood boiled. This wasn't an accident. This was Karen. I called my lawyer, Mia Torres, a pit bull in a pantsuit who'd helped me navigate my startup sale. "Ethan, this smells like a setup," she said, her voice sharp over the phone. "HOAs have power, but they can't just tow and destroy private property without due process. Get me evidence, and we'll bury them." Evidence. That was the problem. Karen was meticulous, covering her tracks like a suburban Machiavelli. But I wasn't about to let her win. The next morning, I started digging. I knocked on neighbors' doors, asking if they'd seen anything. Most clammed up, terrified of Karen's wrath. But Mrs. Delaney, a sweet 80-year-old widow who baked cookies for the block, hesitated. "I saw Karen talking to the tow truck driver before they took your car," she whispered, glancing around like a spy. She handed him something. Looked like an envelope. Bingo. A bribe? I thanked her and promised to keep her name out of it. I spent the next week playing detective. I tracked down the tow truck driver, a nervous kid named Joey who worked for Carl's company. Over beers at a dive bar, I got him talking. "Look, man, I didn't mean to crash it," he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "Karen paid me $500 to tow it fast, no questions. She said to make it inconvenient." I leaned in. "Inconvenient how?" Joey gulped. "She told me to take a rough route to the lot." I hit a curb and, yeah, my fists clenched, but I kept my cool. "You willing to testify?" Joey shook his head. "Karen's got dirt on my boss. I'd lose my job. Dead end. Or so I thought." The twist came from an unexpected source. Greg, the neighborhood's resident slacker, a 40-year-old who lived in his mom's basement and spent his days flying a drone. Greg was the kind of guy Karen despised: unkempt, unemployed, and unbothered by HOA rules. He cornered me at the mailbox one day, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Yo, Ethan, I got something you might like." He pulled out his phone and showed me drone footage from the night my car was towed. Clear as day, there was Karen, slipping an envelope to Joey in my driveway, then pointing at my Lamborghini with a wicked smile. "Greg, you're a genius," I said, clapping his shoulder. He shrugged. "Karen fined me for flying my drone too high. This is payback." I copied the footage and sent it to Mia. Her response was immediate. "This is gold. We're suing the HOA for abuse of power, property damage, and emotional distress." Karen's done. The lawsuit was a spectacle. Willow Creek's HOA board, a clique of Karen's cronies, hired a slick lawyer who tried to paint me as a reckless rich kid flaunting my wealth. But Mia was relentless. She presented the drone footage, Joey's written statement. He caved after Mia promised legal protection, and a paper trail of Karen's petty fines against other neighbors. The courtroom gasped when Mrs. Delaney took the stand, her frail voice trembling as she recounted Karen's bullying tactics. "She threatened to foreclose on my home because my roses were the wrong shade of pink," she said, tears in her eyes. The judge's face darkened. Karen, in her pastel blazer, tried to play the victim. "I'm just enforcing community standards," she cried, clutching a tissue. But the evidence was damning. The judge ruled in my favor. $350,000 for the Lamborghini's damage, $100,000 for emotional distress, and a court order dissolving the HOA's current board. Karen was personally liable for half the damages. Her reign of terror over Willow Creek reduced to rubble. I should have felt triumphant. The neighborhood threw a block party to celebrate, with Greg DJing and Mrs. Delaney passing out cookies. My Lamborghini was in the shop, getting a full restoration. But as I sipped a beer, watching kids play on the street, a knot formed in my gut. Winning felt hollow. Karen was ruined, her house was up for sale, her husband had left her, and she'd become a pariah. I'd wanted justice, not destruction. And then there was the nagging question. Why had Karen hated me so much? The answer came a week later, from another unexpected source. I was grabbing coffee at the local diner when a woman approached me. She was in her 50s, with tired eyes and a nervous smile. "You're Ethan, right?" she said. "I'm Linda, Karen's sister." I braced myself, expecting a lecture. Instead, Linda sat down and told me a story that flipped everything I thought I knew. "Karen wasn't always like this," Linda said, stirring her coffee. 10 years ago, she was married to a tech mogul like you. He built a fortune, bought her a dream house, then left her for his assistant. The divorce cleaned her out. She moved here to start over, but seeing you young, rich, driving that carrot brought it all back. She saw her ex in you." I stared, speechless. "She never told me," I said. Linda sighed. "Karen's too proud. She channeled her pain into controlling this neighborhood. It was her way of feeling powerful again." I left the diner reeling. Karen wasn't a cartoon villain. She was a broken woman lashing out. My victory suddenly tasted like ash. I'd taken her down, but at what cost? Her life was in shambles, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd played a part in her spiral. The lawsuit had been about justice, but it had also been about pride, mine versus hers. And now, as I looked at my gleaming Lamborghini, back in my driveway, I wondered if the real cost of this war was something neither of us could repay. The revelation from Linda hit me like a punch to the chest. I stood in my driveway, the freshly repaired Lamborghini gleaming under the streetlights, its Verde Mantis paint mocking me with its perfection. I'd won the lawsuit, dismantled the HOA, and turned Karen into the neighborhood pariah, but the victory felt like a Pyrrhic one. Her story, her pain gnawed at me. I'd seen her as a monster, but she was just a person, broken by her past, wielding her clipboard like a shield against her own insecurities. And me? I'd swung back with a sledgehammer, thinking I was fighting for justice when maybe I was just feeding my own ego. I couldn't sleep that night. The image of Karen's smug smirk in court battled with Linda's words about her sister's shattered life. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to let this end with her in ruins. I didn't know if I could fix things, but I had to try. I called Mia, my lawyer, and told her my plan. She sighed through the phone. "Ethan, you already won. Why poke the bear?" I didn't have a good answer, just a feeling that winning wasn't enough if it left someone else broken. I tracked down Karen at a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. The for sale sign on her McMansion had been up for weeks, and rumor was she'd moved out after her husband bailed. I knocked on the door, half expecting her to slam it in my face. Instead, she opened it, looking nothing like the Karen I knew. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes red-rimmed, and the live, love energy was gone. "What do you want, Ethan?" she asked, her voice flat. "I want to talk," I said, holding up my hands like I was surrendering. "No lawyers, no HOA, just us." She hesitated, then stepped aside. Her apartment was sparse couch, a folding table, a single photo of her and a man I assumed was her ex-husband, smiling in better days. I sat down, feeling out of place in my designer jacket, and got straight to the point. "Linda told me about your ex. About why you hated me." Karen's face hardened, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. "Linda talks too much," she muttered. I leaned forward. "You saw him in me, didn't you? The car, the money, the attitude. But I'm not him, Karen. And I didn't know." She laughed, a bitter sound. "You think that changes anything? You humiliated me, Ethan. You took everything." "I didn't mean to," I said, and I meant it. I was angry. "You towed my car, crashed it, and I wanted to hit back. But I didn't know it was personal for you." She looked away, her jaw tight. "It wasn't just the car," she said finally. "It was everything. You waltzed into Willow Creek like you owned it, and I couldn't stand it. I wanted control, and you were an easy target." We sat in silence, the weight of our mutual mistakes filling the room. Then I did something even I didn't expect. "I'm dropping the personal damages against you," I said. "The $175,000 you owe me? Gone. I'll cover it." Karen stared, her mouth slightly open. "Why would you do that?" she asked, suspicion lacing her voice. I shrugged. "Because I don't want to be the guy who destroys someone to feel good about himself. And because I think you've been punished enough." She didn't thank me. I didn't expect her to. But as I left, I saw something shift in her expression, a crack in the armor she'd worn for so long. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Back in Willow Creek, the neighborhood was changing. Without the HOA's iron grip, people started loosening up. Mrs. Delaney planted neon pink roses, Greg flew his drone without fear of fines, and kids rode bikes in the street without Karen's whistle blowing them back to their driveways. I organized a community meeting not to gloat, but to propose a new way forward. "No more HOAs," I said to the crowd gathered in the park. "Let's form a voluntary council, focused on helping each other, not policing." The cheers were louder than I expected. But the story wasn't over. The final twist came a month later, when I got a call from Carl, the impound lot manager. "Ethan, you're going to want to hear this," he said, sounding nervous. "I found something in the tow truck's GPS logs. That night your car got towed, Karen wasn't the only one calling the shots." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" Carl hesitated. "My boss, Vince. He's got a side hustle selling high-end car parts. He told Joey to make sure your Lamborghini took a beating so he could strip it for parts before you got it back." I was floored. Karen had been the face of the operation, but Vince was the puppeteer, using her vendetta to line his pockets. I called Mia again, and we went after Vince. The evidence was airtight GPS logs, text messages, even a recorded call where he bragged about teaching rich kids a lesson. Vince's company was shut down, and he faced criminal charges for conspiracy and property damage. Karen, it turned out, hadn't known about Vince's scheme. She'd been a pawn, her anger manipulated to serve someone else's greed. I saw Karen one last time, at a coffee shop near her apartment. She looked better, like she was starting to rebuild. "I heard about Vince," she said, stirring her latte. "I didn't know he was using me." I nodded. "I figured. You were a lot of things, Karen, but a criminal mastermind?" "Nah." She smirked, a ghost of her old fire. "You're still a cocky jerk, Ethan." I grinned. "And you're still a pain in the ass. But maybe we can call a truce." She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. That was enough. The Lamborghini was back in my driveway, a symbol of victory that no longer felt like one. I'd won the battle, but the war had cost me something I couldn't name, me a piece of my certainty, my righteousness. I'd set out to destroy Karen and the HOA, but in the end, I'd learned more about myself than I wanted to. I wasn't the hero of this story, just a guy who'd gotten caught up in a fight bigger than his car. And Karen? She wasn't the villain I'd painted her as. She was human, flawed, and hurting, just like me. As I looked out at Willow Creek, now free from the HOA's chokehold, I wondered if I'd done the right thing. I'd fought for justice, but I'd also fueled a feud that left scars on everyone. The neighborhood was healing, but Karen's life was still in pieces, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd played a part in that. The Lamborghini gleamed, but it was a reminder of a victory that came at too high a price. So what do you think? Was I right to take down the HOA and expose Karen's actions, or did I go too far in pursuing justice? Should I have shown Karen mercy sooner, or was her punishment deserved? Share your thoughts. I want to hear where you stand on who was right, who was wrong, and what you'd have done in my shoes.